Shall we continue?
How is an infinite punishment for a finite crime just? Not believing in a God doesn't last forever, but the torture of hell does. Number 11. How does the Old Testament...
Wait, what? Infinite punishment. Gates of hell are locked from the inside, and, no. For some, the only two I can think of are Arius and... Well, no, it's possible the devil could get out. Again, you really should read some Clement of Alexandria, Origen, even though later on he, you should look at the idea of non-heretical universalism. Again, it just seems like you're only familiar with the form of Protestantism, the very modern form of Protestantism, where you have a motivational preacher and a jam band, and that's church service. Seems like you don't know anything about historical Christianity or historical churches where there's a liturgy. There's the Eucharist every Sunday, and there are 12 feast days, and there are periods of fasting and what the restrictions are, or that, prayer 3 times a day facing east. For anybody familiar with anything like this, it's kind of, I mean, I respect skepticism and knowledge, but arguing against straw men is just ridiculous. And saying, well, there's half of a family that started this thing in Kansas called the Westboro Baptist Church. They believe it, so therefore they're the representatives of 2 billion Christians. Not only that, but the last 2,000 years of Christianity, of what all the bishops and patriarchs said, it doesn't matter. It's just what, modern American sola scriptura Christians believe. But, so that one is just, wow. So what is this one, number 11? How does the Old Testament apply to Christians when the 10 Commandments and original sin are in the New Testament, or in the Old Testament?
Not apply to Christians when the 10 Commandments and original sin are in the Old Testament.
Original sin is not in the Old Testament. Do you even know what original sin is? Original sin was something stumbled across by Augustine, a former Manichaean, in the New Testament book of Romans, chapter 9. It is nowhere in the Old Testament. The 10 Commandments, yeah, them being in the Old Testament, and they were reiterated in the New Testament as well. Except the Sabbath, because Christ was always recognized to be the Sabbath. What's the rhetoric on this?
The things Christianity is based on is in the Old Testament.
No.
Number 12.
No. Christianity is based on the life of Christ, the belief in his resurrection, and the teachings of the apostles. So no, it's based on the church, which wrote, edited, and compiled the Bible. Not just the New Testament, but the Old Testament, they compiled that too. Okay.
Why must a holy book resort to threats and name-calling? The Bible calls non-believers fools and threatens them with hell. Science books don't have to resort to that. You can prove the things in a science book with evidence. No need for threats and name-calling. Number 13.
Threats and name-calling. Are you talking about when Christ called the Pharisees, who were, oppressing people and being hypocrites, blighted and bleached and whited sepulchres full of dead men's bones and serpents and wolves in sheep's clothing. Criticizing people is wrong, especially when they're committing great acts of evil. Yeah, it's really bad. Have you ever said anything bad about, maybe Hitler or Kim Jong-un? Let's say Kim Jong-un, not Hitler, because he's dead. Kim Jong-un, or child molesters, or a rapist or something like that, or maybe somebody at work that was bullying somebody else, or somebody at school that was bullying somebody else. Have you ever said, "Hey, you fuckhead, stop doing that," or even threatened to kick someone's ass? And as for non-belief, threats. What? Again, in the Old Testament, your race, your tribe, your religion were one thing, right? Islam takes this view today. If you leave Islam, apostasy, Sharia calls for your death because it's seen as treachery, as treason. And when you're hemmed in by everybody else, kind of like what was going on in the Levant 3,000 years ago, yeah, you're damn right that you got threats from people around you if you were like, yeah, I don't really believe what everybody else believes. I'm going to go my own way, even though I'm taking all the protection from you guys. So I don't know what the hell this stuff is. And hell, you want to deal with the Greek and not with what just the King James used, the name of a Nordic goddess, to translate 4 different words that carried 4 different ideas behind them: Sheol, Gehenna, Tartaros, and Hades, not to mention all the imagery that the Anglophone world, especially the Protestants through the Church of England, associate with hell, but have nothing to do with hell. Just like they'll associate a lot of these prophecies as about being part of the end of the world, when they have nothing to do with the end of the world. They have to do with the Bar Kokhba revolt, or they're just parables. So again, doesn't seem like you're really educated enough to even be asking these questions. Thankfully, we're at number 13.
Why would God need a rib to create a woman? Couldn't he just make her from dust as well? Number 14.
You've got to be kidding me. You're taking that story as literal? There are 5 creation accounts. 5. Chapter 1 of Genesis, you read it. Man and women were created equally at the same time. And the deity is called El. That's why it's capital G and then O-D. Then you have the anthropomorphic version, right? That's more relatable about the deity being referred to as capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, and he's anthropomorphized. He's walking through the Garden of Eden in the cool of the day in his footsteps. You really don't know what you're talking about, do you? A woman being made from a rib? Let's take all of the parables that Christ taught, let's take them literally, even though that would defeat the entire point of the teaching. If you take a parable literally, you don't see the truth that it's trying to convey or the message that it's trying to convey. Now it just becomes a story that just means nothing because there's no meaning behind it. It's just factual events. And what about the 3 other creation accounts? Just ignore them. You're just gonna, just like the American Protestant fundamentalists, you're gonna quote mine, proof text, and Pick out whatever works for you, right? Number 14.
When God said, "Let there be light," who was he talking to?
Wow. So you do know that there was another creation account directly preceding that one.
The light God. Number 15.
The light God, that's what he was talking to. When God said, "Let there be light," even though the Bible is a text to be read by humans. Let there be light. And God made man in our own image. There is one God, yet in that God there is a multiplicity. Have you heard of this thing called the Trinity? Not to mention there's these beings that some people believe in, known as angels, and also thrones, dominions, powers, principalities, as well as there was a character named Lucifer that would then become Satan. Yeah, there was nobody else to talk to, right? Before, space, energy, time, and matter came into existence. Yeah. Who was he talking to? None of these other powers in heaven or powers in the spiritual world are ever mentioned in any of the books of the Bible, even though they're mentioned in pretty much every single book of any canon of the Bible.
If God is all just, then how can he have mercy? Mercy is the suspension of justice and is in direct contradiction with it.
No.
Number 16.
Justice many times is merciful. Justice is a form of mercy. You have a Western view, again. The people writing the texts that would end up in the Bible lived in Mesopotamia, mainly the Levant, but sometimes in Egypt, and then during the early Roman imperial period, these were written sometimes in Greece and Italy. What's modern day Greece, Italy, and Turkey, but the Anatolia Peninsula. Justice and mercy are not opposites, especially in the Bible. The rule of law, what's more merciful? Anarchy or a republic with rules of law and justice and courts? Justice and mercy being wow.
How is not existing 100 years ago different from not existing 100 years from now? We all know what it's like to not exist, so we all should know how it will be to not exist again after we die. Number 17.
Hold on, we don't know what it's like to not exist. Do you have any? So you would have to believe in an immortal soul to know what it's like to not exist. We know, at least from my experience, I know, well, I began to remember or to store memories from when I was really little, maybe about 3 or 4, right? I don't remember being in the womb, so I don't remember before conception because life begins at conception. So does the human soul in Christianity. Yeah, there's no pre-existent soul. So after death, right? Let's say there's nothing part of you that survives. You don't know what that's like. I don't know what it was like personally, with personal knowledge, I don't know what I didn't experience anything before conception. And I don't remember anything really before ages, what, 2, 3, 4? I don't know. Because the brain doesn't really retain that kind of stuff. So that question, I don't know what the hell the point of it is, and 2, it's just wrong.
If there are over 11,000 sects of Christianity, who is to say which one is right?
The historical one, the one true Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church that hasn't changed its teachings ever, and that the last change to the liturgy was done in the 4th century, which would be the Eastern Orthodox Church. Easy answer. I'm getting a little bit long here, so I'll answer the last part of that in a the last 3 questions in a very short video, so it should be a 3-part series. Peace to you.